Hello everyone and welcome to Seven Waters. I'm here with Joseph Bayach. My name is Nicholas Hessman and we are talking about the base energy center today. This is our second time through speaking about these 7 energy centers. Once a week we're doing a recording on each of these energy centers, and now we're back to numero un, the primal faith, the enforcer, fight versus flight. The developmental age is between 0 and 3 years of age. So what's really cool about this, you're in your infancy stage. You're not even consciously aware of your life and your surroundings. When you're developing this base energy, you're learning trust and an embodiment of your environment to where you cannot really distinguish between where you begin and where you end. So if you think about an infant needing its mother's milk and care and protection, security, etc., that baby is looking to the mother as its ultimate trust mechanism in the environment in which it is establishing itself. This makes for virtues of hope and the primal energy of fight or flight. If that child is fighting and having a problem, needing food or thirsty or needing a diaper change, the fighting mechanism is going to be through crying, and tantrum and throwing a fit. Then the adult knows. If it is flight and it wants to get away, not fight, but it wants to get away, then it will go, the baby, the infant will fall asleep. And so this fight or flight mechanism in the base energy center is primary, it's instinctual, it's connected to the id in a really unique way like we were discussing yesterday. Joy is going to touch on Lynn Laritz's work on conflict resolution in just a moment regarding the specificity of understanding this as enforcer and what the enforcer is and how it sits on that tightrope of fight or flight. Another thing about the primal energy, and if you think about each of these energy centers as intersecting points of light, I know it's kind of hard to fathom, but us being on some other realm, intersecting points of light, the base energy center has the lowest amount of intersecting points as in compared to the crown. Here in a book in front of me from Barbara Ann Brennan, the book Light Emerging, the book Hands of Light, the base energy center has 4 vortices crossing its path. Sacral 6, solar plexus 10, and check this out, 12 in the heart, 16 in the throat, and then it gets really crazy in the third eye. There's 96 intersecting paths up here. And then in the crown, there's 972. So those are some completely distinct energy vibrations within the human mechanism. We could look up the hertz and talk about these different frequencies have been proven scientifically. We can gauge that we each are actually flowing with the hertz that's similar, the exact same as the color red, and that energy is coming through the base. So this is fascinating work to continue studying. Joseph and I, like I said before, have studied this material our entire lives, and it continues to open up into more extraordinary understanding of what we are as a human. Before passing the floor over to you, Joey, I would like to touch on the concept of reverence from the book, the Hebrew prophetic text, Isaiah chapter 11, verse 2. It speaks as reverence being one of the main attributes of the perfect human. If you want to think about reverence as something important to have in you, and each of us exercise it in different ways, through nature, through prayer to our deity, our spirit, however we see that. The opposite of it is fear and terror. You're extraordinarily scared of something and you're running from it and you can't stop, you just got to get away. That would be this base energy center flighting away. Now, in a situation of reverence where you're taking a knee and experiencing something phenomenal, that would be more of being in the present moment, being present, ladies and gentlemen, is the base energy center. So it's easy for us to be schizoid, remove ourselves. I've been to dinner parties before and I left, I was like, I wasn't even really present with anyone. It's like I was scattered the whole time. So this energy center, to be balanced and to build its trust and to establish its hope, you have to mindfully be present with yourself. I'm going to pass it over to you here. And the main thing that's very special to me is the undifferentiated faith here, guys, is the infant in this stage cannot distinguish between itself and the boundaries of others and its environment. It's like all one. So this is a sacred space in each of us, and it was developed in us unconsciously. We weren't aware as little infants and toddlers. This was kind of pre-programmed. Our primal energy, in conjunct with our DNA and whatever we are genealogically, we're programmed by our authorities and our parents, our aunts, our uncles, anyone that has command over us in this age. And however they ripple us, however they come to us and speak to us, everything becomes part of our primal energy of what we can trust and cannot trust, what I will fight or what I will flight. And that's where I'll stop there. The sense of smell is also connected to this. So you can't deny your olfactory. Something either smells yucky and you withdraw, ugh, or it smells good and yummy, you want more. That is the most beginning that is the earliest of all the evolutionary development senses, I think, from my studies. The smell came first in the creature, before the taste, before the sight, if we went into pre-evolved species and broke it down, and it's instinctual. So you have the floor here, understanding enforcer. I jumped around a little bit there. It's about being physically comfortable and having pleasure and health in your life. And so this primal energy has to know it's okay where it's residing. Otherwise it has to become an enforcer, or it has to fight or flight. You have the floor, Joey. Thank you for hearing me.
First thing I want to say is the word parameters. So once an undifferentiated faith, we don't know the difference between us and our mothers or our environments. And basically the base is where we start to develop structure and boundaries. And if those aren't developed, we end up having issues as we get older, especially in our second chakra, in our emotional lives.
Very nice.
We have to have, we have to understand boundaries. We have to understand where we end and the other person begins. Mm-hmm. Basically, when it comes to the enforcer concept, we start to realize there have to be some rules, there have to be some laws, so to speak. There has to be some sense of almost like a doctrine. There has to be a way of conducting ourselves in the world so that we respect the uniqueness of the other person or our neighbors or whatever it may be. When a person feels as though those parameters are broken in life, a lot of times that's when the fight or flight thing will come in. You know, you've crossed the line, so to speak. I think of this also because it is a primal energy and has to do with fight or flight as a center of maybe self-defense or a center of defense. We have to realize that there are things outside of us that perhaps even unconsciously don't understand what our boundaries are, don't respect us. Like if we were in nature, we'd understand that that bear may not realize we have a family to tend to later, and it may just want to eat us. So it is a very primal thing. The enforcer concept, I like to also think of parent-child relationship. When we have a child, we have to be the enforcers. We have to, when they run out in the road, we go and we physically pick them up and take them out of the road. There is a place for enforcement. Now, we also all completely understand how that can become out of balance and tyrannical. And if we're playing too much of an enforcer role, we really do become, again, tyrannical. The base is the foundation. And our foundation could also be thought of as the floor of existence. We could think of it as also, again, the concept of the structure. We could think of it as the concept of the container. So the base is, again, the bottom of existence in a certain sense. What I mean by that is similar to how if we were like thinking of ourselves as a guitar with many strings, the bass is like the bass note, the deepest note. Low vibration. That again is why the bass has to do with material existence. Another word to think of is the concept of being embodied or incarnated. So at the higher centers, we're talking about, the soul, the spirit. At the lowest, we're really talking very much about our physicality. So there's more to be said there, but I'll go ahead and just pass it back to you. I think that's a pretty good place to stop.
This is really fascinating to me, especially in comparison to our conversation yesterday with the ego and the third energy center. This base energy of primal instinct. Someone that's very comfortable in the woods and in nature, that's out camping, and someone that's never, ever, ever, ever been out in the woods, ever camping. The person that's familiar with the woods is going to have a very strong primal energy and will feel very connected to Mother Earth, the nature around him or her. The antithesis of that would be a person in the woods, absolutely terrified, freaking out, and finding themselves to kind of be a victim. So I'm jumping on the archetypes real quick. Because these archetypes tie into how fear and terror can take over in this energy center, or how you can have reverence and basically superimpose or transcend above the fear. And so it's easy to play victim. If someone in your parental infrastructure, grandmother, grandfather, uncle, aunt, mother, whatever authority, big brother, older cousin, has this ability in them of too much fear and terror, it's going to be programmed on you without you can't, you were given that software, you can't do anything about it. And then you got to learn to work with it, with your higher energy centers. Like, whoa, that terror, that fear, that thing that's bothering me, I need to acknowledge this. This isn't even mine to own. This is something that was given to me to deal with before I was consciously aware. And so when you're able to step into that place with yourself, it's fascinating how fear and terror can be transformed into reverence. If you've ever had a significant spiritual experience where some form of power and you were exposed to it, you would understand what I mean by reverence. And you'll take a knee and be in awe in that moment. Simultaneously, someone else could experience running in terror because of the thunderclap sound they heard. The Apostle Paul, Saul, prior to being Paul, on the road to Damascus, when he was blinded with his vision of the Christ, when Christ said, "Why do you persecute me?" and he couldn't see until he went to the next town and met a certain person. If I'm not mistaken, there were other people present with Paul. Paul had this vision of Christ in conversation with the Christ. Others just heard a clapping sound and a noise. And so in that moment, some were running in terror and others were having their name changed from Saul to Paul. So in that exact same moment, Saul, the Apostle Paul, had a certain base energy awareness going on Damascus Road. Others walking along obviously didn't. So this is pointing to having your energy vortexes, your energy centers receptive and balanced where they are. If you find yourself being a victim and scared in nature, you're probably not exercising your base energy appropriately. So the dark side of this energy is fear and terror. The malfunction, it can be extreme morbid obesity, or it can be anorexia and constipation. These things matter. So this is about your earth. We say Mother Nature. This isn't to have a conversation what Mother Nature is to God the Father. It's just saying nature itself, the earth that we're connected to. Anytime we nurture ourselves through the earth in any way, you're definitely empowering this base energy center. So before I pass it back to you, Joseph, if you have terror or fear or anything that's giving you fright and circling in your mind and tormenting you and not giving you peace, perhaps find yourself out in nature or other ways in which you know how to exercise reverence. I'd like to say also, since our energy packets are offering these, working out the base energies, doing squats, doing walking lunges, jump squats, going for a run, activating this base energy movement will ground you and center you as well. In closing, I'll read over some coaching questions for this as well. You have the floor. What say you?
Orientation to self.
Yeah.
Self-preservation.
And to have.
And the right of this is to have.
Remember, Earth needs material need. It's not to be demonized completely, but it has to be. It's not to be demonized. It's to be balanced.
Exactly.
Not someone's materialistic and you write them off. They're to have. They're trying to get themselves feeling balanced.
Exactly. So it's okay to have the need to have some things in your life. It's okay. That's okay. You know, not all sense of needing to have some material possessions. it's, we can't deny that we need some material possessions, some things, okay? But we also know how that gets
Well, you can't feel
distorted.
bad about being fed that, what you choose to have.
Mhm.
Or then there's an unbalance in the sacral energy center or base. If you're
Yep.
feeling guilty, buy reward.
Oh, and the next thing, yes, exactly.
You're like, oh, I had ice cream. Oh, I'm so terrible. How did I have it?
Yeah.
Whoa. There's some stuff going
Yeah,
on here.
right,
But
right.
we all have it. And that's why we're having this
Mhm.
conversation about the primal energy.
Mhm.
Why does the enforcer come out? From
Well,
your
well,
intuition.
well, my gut and what you were saying to me a moment ago about fear and how we get fear put in us before we're conscious. And I was reading a book that you actually gave to me at one time that was talking about inherited shame. And basically, we get inherited shame, we get inherited guilt, and we get inherited fear. So some of the things we're afraid of were inherited, meaning our family system is afraid of something, right? Or our parent, again, programmed us with the fear. So enforcer is a very fear-based place to be a lot of time. Again, sometimes it has its appropriate place where it's just enforcing things not out of fear, but out of a sense of like, this has got to happen so my kid doesn't, again, get hit in the street. So there's a touch of fear. And again, fear is an interesting thing because we can kind of split it down the middle and talk about what's a healthy fear and an unhealthy fear.
There's several different types of fears. C.S.
So-
Lewis presented years ago in a book I was reading. I don't know if it was The Great Divorce or what.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's probably like the pains of love, the problems of pain. I can't remember. There's all types of different fears.
Right.
You have a tiger in the other room, and you have to go in the house. There's a tiger in there.
Yeah.
Well, that's scary.
Yeah, that's.
You're swerving out of control at 85 mile an hour toward ongoing traffic, and you're about to wreck. That's another type of fear. Someone tells you there's a ghost in the house. Uh-oh, we're moving into some ethereal fears. Now someone says an Archangel Michael's coming down in the backyard to hang out today. Okay. Starting to touch on something of reverential energy that's different than that boogeyman ghost. And
Right.
you're in a whole other category of reverent energy. Not falling beneath to these lesser vibrations. Go ahead.
No, which is why, like in our biblical studies, we learn about fear being the basis for wisdom
Necessary.
or knowledge of God, or understanding of God.
To keep passion balanced,
And
if you will.
and a lot of people misunderstand that
Yeah.
and think that no, that means God's like trying to make us afraid of everything, or we're supposed to just be completely afraid of God. And it's really missing the point that when we're young and we're first developing, or when we're doing something brand new, skydiving or whatever, there's supposed to be a little fear. That actually keeps
we're not trying to turn it all.
self-preserves us. The deal is, it's also to be transcended. So it's the start, but not the end. Now, the enforcer, I want to read this out of, again, Lynn Larrett's. He has a book called No Fault Negotiating, and he talks about the profile of an enforcer personality. And, or this is, again, being in our base.
If this is what they're domineering in, and it's like over everything else, this is their primary focus in every way above all other energy centers, you'll notice these characteristics coming up.
And one thing he says is the style of thinking is immediate. It's got to immediately have, like fight or flight. He talks it's episodic. He talks it's pretty egocentric because it has a lot to do with that person, and it has to do with that person's fear. Like they got to handle stuff because they're afraid, right? They're not so much worried about.
Can you pause?
Yeah.
Because guys, right here, I was coaching in a session yesterday, and I was, whoa! I had a connection because I was working with my client on guilt, and according to our studies, the third chakra, our third energy center holds guilt. And I was like, where is this guilt residing in you? Is it in your sacral more, sir? Is it in your base? And he's like, I think it's my base. So I opened up to it's like base. And I was like, trust, mistrust. I was like, do you have issues with trust? He's like, actually I do. Everything in my life, every job I've had, every person I love and am close to as a friend or family member, it's all founded on trust. And when that trust is breached, this is pretty cool. Fear takes over, enforcer turns on, and then if the enforcer turns on too far and it overcharges, then later the third energy center feels guilt.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I ripped that guy to pieces. I can't believe, what was I thinking to be so rude to him? Well, the fear was turned on so bright for a moment that the mistrust was ignited. I can't trust you.
Right.
I'll shame you.
That's right. It's a
And if I shame it too much, I'll push you away. Now I'm safe. I have my boundaries back. Did I overdo it? Oh, now I feel guilty. Did I balance it and hold it appropriately? Did I stand my ground as an enforcer? I feel reverent. Did I overdo it? Oh, I feel guilty. Am I a victim? Am I a martyr? It's like this weird mind game, as sophisticated as we are. Go back to enforcer.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that
that's
out.
That's awesome.
So the guilt thing, when you have a client, when you're coaching them, and they're like, I'm feeling guilty, there might be a trust issue.
Yeah.
A base energy trust issue, a primal energy going on that wasn't nurtured in their undifferentiated phase stage when they were 3 years old, guys.
Yeah, I mean, and if they were abused,
or
there's a reason for
hidden neglect,
for
not being given
or neglect,
hidden neglect, even to where they don't even. It appears the kid's doing fine.
Oh yeah,
like they're not really like a very wealthy kid may appear to be doing really fine, but there may be all types of levels of hidden neglect.
And that happens a lot.
Or of course, a poor child, it may not be as hidden, but the neglect could be taking place. So it may not appear what it seems. We don't know what each creature, each human is experiencing as an individual through their primal energy. Keep on with enforcer.
It says the core need is to survive.
Exactly.
You got to survive. You got self-preservation. And I like this part. Key emotions of the enforcer: rage, terror, paralysis. So there's the fight or flight, but then there's also this third thing of freezing.
Well, we're sparring, and there's that, in the cage fighting, when the men are going around 7 times in a row, and they're right here. They're paused. They can't fight. They can't flight. They're like
stalemate almost.
Paralysis.
Yeah, paralysis. Exactly. And that's actually a really terrible place to be. And I want to tell one quick little story because we like to do this. But I heard this story. There's a fox, and he's in a zoo, right? And he's in a cage. And in the cage, all he's got's a bench. And the fox basically is going crazy because all it can do is jump off the thing or jump back on. It wants to get out. It wants new parameters. It wants new boundaries. But it's literally frozen in its environment. And a lot of us can metaphorically or emotionally relate to that because we can feel very caged, and that's why we got to be mindful of how people use enforcement, right? Because the tyrannical type of ruler would always, in a certain sense, he would be the person or she would be the person that is the one that always puts up all the boundaries and basically controls everything. So the next key emotion had to do with emptiness and hollowness. Just being empty and hollow, because if everything's based on fear, there's a really good chance that we're going to run people off in our lives. People don't like to be around people that are just absolutely just inundated with fear and worry. The next thing, sense of power, has to do with physical size or visible symbols. I think wealth also goes into this category because at our base is also financial sustainability, because we have to use money as a means of transaction in the world.
There's different primal energies. If I pull up in a 1972 Dodge Ram or a 2018 Dodge Ram, there's different primal energies that exude different things in the world, and it's hard to understand how that works about material gain and all, but if you've been, I was in Miami Beach longboarding, and I was trying to keep up with a Lamborghini, and he took off, and the exhaust was so powerful off the motor, it like slowed down my longboard.
Oh yeah.
I was like, there was something very primal there that was like, wow.
Right,
his exhaust slowed down my longboard. It was just an amazing moment, and the power of that vehicle's going on me was just.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It was just amazing, and the primal energies can be full diversity. We're not trying to say that if one is wealthy or one is poor, that they have a deficiency or overcharge of primal energy.
Right.
Each person is born into their own class, race, age, sex, and handicaps. We're saying that your specific personal awareness of this, like a thumbprint, every one of us have a unique primal energy.
Oh, yeah.
It's correlative to who raised us, who reared us, who took us in.
Right, and it goes both ways. It can be misused. If you're a middle-class person, envious of wealth and judging a bunch of people that are wealthier than you, then that's an issue in you. Likewise, if you're really wealthy, looking down on people that have less than you, then that's your problem. It can go either way. The idea is that too much emphasis becomes placed on that visible symbol, that again, big house, that big truck, that whatever it is.
For transition here, and to conclude, unless you have more, this is if we're and Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint Teresa of Avila, the book The Interior Castles, I believe. She speaks very intimately about the base energy center and the second energy center. And now we're sitting here for this entire conversation where we have the box. You feel the box of your primal energy, your northeast, south, and west, your parameters, your boundaries. You feel it? Now, if you get your reverence right on those corners, now you're ready to move into number 2 where the knowledge is. I mean, but if this container's not right, or has leaks and breaches and just is fragmented and the corners aren't strong, if the foundation is not right, when we move into the second energy center and start to focus on our personal knowledge, which the way you empower that to the third is by giving glory that the knowledge is not yours. Mm-hmm. It's not yours. It's given to you as a gift. And then that activates the third, according to St. Teresa, and balances it, versus it can be abused in the sacral energy and not allowed to flow higher. Right now we're talking about the base, the container, with the emphasis next week we're speaking about the sacral energy of self-love, self-hate, emotionality, sexuality, creativity, I mean the fun of life. Mm-hmm. But this base has to be established, guys. This base can't be all goofy and then standing on cracked legs or not solid. It's not founded. It has to have its precedent and its authority.
Right.
Then you get to craft your knowledge container. And we'll talk about that next week, which has to do with self-love and self-hate. Right now it's about an animalistic, instinctual awareness of life that we share with the animals.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. They understand boundaries.
Yeah, you pull up on a deer or a bear or whatever, and you can have that moment with those animals. That is primal energy. That's all I'd like to say in closing with this. You have the floor to conclude, and thank you all for being receptive. We know this jumps around and it's a lot of words. We're putting together 20 different concepts while aligning it into the base energy, covering fields of psychology, theology, of course, religion, philosophy, leadership theory, etc., and Eastern theories of chakra healing. I mean, this is full spectrum, and you guys are receptive to these different angles. We want you to put it together in your own base, make sense of this, smell it, get your purpose, establish your reverence, and let's get the knowledge flowing. Joey, you have the floor.
Yes, makes me think now about in yoga how we talk about the yamas and the niyamas, and how these they talk about these should be developed even before the asana practice begins, meaning that we should have a certain sense of the yamas and niyamas have to do with codes of conduct, both toward ourself and toward others in the world.
Kind of like the Eightfold Path of Buddhism or the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments of the Old
Well,
Testament.
and that's exactly what I was going to get to, is we need some sense of what I've heard called almost like low resolution rules.
Yeah.
Rules that are pretty basic, and we realize that there's some flux in there, but pretty much those rules are pretty darn good to live our lives by.
Be honest to self and
Be
others.
honest to self. Yes, right?
That
and
one, okay.
Don't steal, don't kill, that kind of stuff. Another one that's really important here, and I'm thinking about the sense of smell, and I'm thinking about the yoga concepts of yamas and niyamas, is cleanliness, keeping our environments clean, hygiene, washing our bodies, brushing our teeth, flossing. Self-care is very much, a base activity. It's not always fun to do all those things, but they got to be done, because if not, what ends up happening in the physical realm, when we think of our laws of physics, one is that the universe tends toward what's called entropy, and that means disorder. And I've heard it said that if the body's left to itself and we don't take care of it, it tends towards disorder and malfunction. So we have to put into ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to clean ourselves, and we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can on the base level, so that the other energy centers can really shine and glow. So from there, I think I'll pass it back to you. You said you wanted to do some coaching questions.
Yeah, the coaching questions. Lower back issues, spinal issues, kidneys, adrenal glands, all connected to this energy center, as though if you have inflammation or pain or awkwardness, spinal alignment issue, you could be looking into this as well. The coaching questions that we'll cover in conjunct with the workout regimen, that's why this is magic. We'll be doing this until we're way on 90, 92, I'll probably stop teaching and talking on it, just chill, I'll be flying something, but we'll talk about that later. So here we have coaching questions in conjunction with weight training exercises. These weight training exercises, well, you can do them with body weight as well, like a swing squat, a lunge squat, a step up. These movements that flex the glutes, the hamstrings and quads, get the lower. You guys know what it means to work out your legs. That activates and grounds and centers your primal energy center. You cannot avoid this energy center. It's amazing. The thing about this is when you're doing the workouts, we also have established coaching questions that help with understanding foundation, authority, rootedness, self-preservation, instinct, intuitive survival skills. I wrote it twice. So here's the coaching questions, guys. I mean, it's as simple as this. What do you consider reverential in life? How can you exercise more reverence in life? What types of fears do you experience? With the current person you are right now, how can you overcome those fears with more reverence? What is instinctual to you? What do you love the most about nature? These questions about any concept that we've discussed today, when you deepen your awareness around it, the magic starts to happen. We want you to get to know yourself through the study of these 7 energy centers. So, again, what does it mean for you to be primal in your life? And another question, the final one, and we'll close. Define what it means to have a foundation and to feel established. So a key conceptual here is, as it says, sustainability. With our physical comfort, pleasure, and health, each energy center has a need, and it deserves that need to be fulfilled. This isn't a want. I learned in graduate school, 3rd year. It's okay to have needs. I was like, wow. It's very important, guys. This energy center has needs. Brush your teeth, floss, hygiene, clean, pick up your physical environment, make it beautiful. You'll feel better. Get out in nature. So these questions have everything to do with your foundation and your rootedness. And when you have this, it's a form of faith and energy that no one can take from you. They'll just want to share in it and build into your sacral energy center. Thank you for your receptivity. This has been awesome. Next week we'll speak on numero dos, the 2nd energy center, the sacral chakra, where sexuality, artistry, creativity, and our emotionality reside. Remember, until next week, and furthermore, establish yourself and ground yourself. Love who you are, love others around you, and enjoy your environment. We'll see you soon, and have a great day. Bye-bye.